Hi, in today's video we're going to wrap up our abilities series, at least for the most part, and we're going to make it so that we can now acquire abilities by finding them in these chests. Hi, my name is Michael. Welcome to my 2D action and adventure RPG tutorial series. Follow along and learn how to create your own ARPG in Godot 4 using GD script. We're finally kind of wrapping up some of this ability work, and what we want to do in this video today is just add a way for the player to acquire these abilities in game. So what we'll do is we'll build a new item type that's going to interface with our existing item system that we've got in the game. But this new type, rather than rewarding an item, we'll simply tell the player's ability script that, hey, we got a new ability, so you need to update there. And because of the work that we've done up to this point, once we can pick up and acquire these abilities, it should be simple. It should work with our save and load system, and we should have all the basics that we need to have an ability system within our game. Now, in order to do this, I'm going to add a couple treasure chests. We could make these any kind of item drop, and they should work, but a treasure chest is probably the most obvious way, especially if you're adding these power-ups or abilities in places like in dungeons, you know, kind of like a traditional Zelda. When the player works through the dungeon and finds a certain room, they get the ability that allows them to finish clearing the dungeon, right? And so let's go ahead and I'm going to take this treasure chest scene that we've got here in this level. I'm going to duplicate it. And I'm just going to drag it down here. Oh no, it's pushing the guy. I need to figure that out. I remember I encountered this before. I don't really want these to push people when I drag them around, but okay, so we've got our treasure chest 2. Let's just duplicate this a couple times. We'll do 1 for each ability. So we'll end up with 4. Oh man, I got to get rid of these little pots over here, I guess. They're kind of in the way. I'll just delete them. I don't know what animation track is related that it was talking about, so hopefully I didn't break anything. Let's just do a quick test to make sure this is still running. I don't know, that was a weird warning to get. Okay. So now I can just pick up a whole bunch of ninja suits. Sweet. Okay. And what we'll use these treasure chests for is we'll put in our new ability item pickups, okay? Okay, so all we really need to do is just drop some new items in there. And if we look at the treasure chest, right, we've got this item data that we attach, and this is whatever item you're going to pick up or acquire when you open the chest. But as I mentioned, we're going to make a new type of item data, and we've done this before. So if I come down here to, let me just close a few things here. Let's find our items folder. And if we look in the scripts, we've got item data. And then we have equipable item data, because this is for our armor and weapons because they have some unique properties. So we're just going to make another type of item data. And this new item data will be an ability item data. So I'm going to go ahead and close this equipable item data. We don't need that. And I'm going to duplicate the item data script, and we'll call it ability _ item data. And we want to change the class name. And we need to make sure that it extends item data. And I probably should have duplicated the equipable item data. That would have been a little bit easier. But let me just go ahead and delete all this. Okay, because since this extends item data, that means it's going to have all of that, all those properties and all that in there. I'm going to go ahead and save this. It should get rid of that warning. Essentially, it was giving us a warning because it was of type item data, and that already exists, right? Now, all we need in our ability item data is we just need to identify which ability it's associated with. And we have 4 abilities in the game. So there's a few ways we could do this. I'm going to go with the enum method. So we'll have an enum called type with capital T. And this is going to represent the 4 types of items that it could be. So this is going to be boomerang. We've got grapple. We've got arrow and bomb. Okay, those are our 4 types. And then what we're going to do next is just export a variable where the user, or where us, the designer, the user, we can select which type the item is. So we'll just say, let's see, export var type lowercase t. So you'll notice there's a difference there, right? One is with a lowercase t and one has a capital T. This lowercase t type is going to be of type. I hate that. I hate it. And then we're going to type yet another time. I'm on a roll with this like redundant words. I mean, I did this last episode too. I think it was abilities.abilities.abilities. Okay, so this is, we'll just set it by default to type boomerang, but obviously you're going to have to select one. Okay, that's all we need for this new ability item data type for the script anyways. So just as a side note, you may see this little warning. This was that cyclic inheritance because we had a class name of item type that extended item type. And anyways, you can't do that. But we've since fixed that. So I'm just going to clean up that error. Okay, so now that we have this set up, let's come into our folder here. And I'm just going to select the items folder. And I'm going to right click and say create new resource. And this resource needs to be of type ability item data. Okay. And now we give it a name, and I'm going to give all of these abilities a prefix of ability. This way they're all going to be, gathered together in the same location. And we'll call this, the first one we'll do the boomerang, I guess. And let's just open up that resource. When we open it, of course, it opens in the inspector over here on the right-hand side. It's of type boomerang by default, but you can see we've got our other 4. We don't really need an item name or description because we're not going to utilize them, but I'll just put boomerang in here just so that it has a name. Boomerang. Yeah, sure, we'll call it boomerang. The other thing we do want, though, is a texture, and we're going to need to make a new texture, a new atlas texture for this. So once we do that, we can now assign a texture to that atlas. So let's say quick load, and let's look for our ability. What is it? Ability icons. Okay. And these icons are all 32 pixels wide. Boomerang's the second one. So it's going to be on the 32 pixels over on the X coordinate. And of course it's 32 pixels wide. So once we enter those into our region variables, we now get the boomerang. Okay. So that we've got our first item type set up. And so now we could come in here and pick one of our treasure chests and just drop this item type onto the item data. And there we go. You can now see that this treasure chest is holding the boomerang. I'm going to go ahead and real quick duplicate this and make the other ability item types that we need. So we'll just duplicate this and we'll say, let's see, we've got arrow, bomb, and one more. Whoops. Grapple. The grapple. The muy bien grapple. So with these set up, obviously we need to go in and configure a couple things. So just real quick, come in, open the arrow. Let's change the type to arrow, give it a name of arrow, and update this graphic. So the arrow is, though, let's see, it's the third one over. So that's going to be what, 64 pixels over. Okay, save that. Let's make sure the boomerang still is boomerang. Yeah. Bomb is the type bomb. Bomb, 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 bomb. And then the bomb is the first one. So we just set the X coordinate to 0 and we've got our bomb. And lastly, it is the grapple. So we're going to take our grapple and set that up. Let's see, what is that? 32 times 3, 96. There we go. Okay, so we've got these all configured. Let's just go through and assign them all to the treasure chests now. Bada bing, bada boom. All of our 4 abilities assigned to a treasure chest. Let's go ahead and just test this out. They aren't going to give us the abilities yet, of course, but let's make sure it doesn't crash the game. Boing, boing. Nice. Okay, there we go. It actually gave us these items, which is not what we want, but I mean, hey, that's pretty cool, right? To make this work, we just need to modify some scripts. And so I want to look at what happens when we pick up an item. And let's see, maybe let's go over here first to this item data. And actually, this isn't super useful, is it? Because we have a different script when we pick it up. When we pick up a treasure chest, let's look at the treasure chest script. Okay, so this one, this is kind of a refresher because I know what it does. We're just trying to refresh everybody's memory because it's been a while since we built this. But we've got, let's see, when we enter the area, we connect to an on area entered, which then connects to the interaction code. So once we interact with it, then it does player interact, which is right here. And if it's not open, then we go ahead and open it, blah, 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 blah. And this is the line where we actually give us the item. We take the inventory data on our player manager and call the add item function and just pass in the item data that's associated with the treasure chest, okay? And this is a very similar type of code when we pick up an item drop in the world. It would also use this add item function call. So this is the perfect place for us to hook in and intercept this. So I'm going to go ahead and just control click on that, and it should open add item in our inventory data script. And there we have it. We're going to modify this script. I think this is probably one of the safest and easiest ways to intercept this ability type, item type. And so we'll just handle it pretty easily from within here. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to come to our add item function, and we'll do a quick check to see. We'll do this at the very beginning, actually. So right before we go through all of our slots, we don't need to do anything else if we know that this is an ability item. So we can do a simple check if item is of type ability item data. Now this works because ability item data extends item data, so it still passes in and it still meets this object typing, but now we're just getting more specific. So is the item data of type ability item data, right? And if it is, then we can of course return and not do the rest of the function, but we need to do one other thing. And what we will do is similar to our last video with the save and load. Instead of adding a bunch of extra stuff in here, we'll just emit a signal, and then we'll let our ability script pick it up and handle it, okay? So we need to create that signal before we can emit it. So up here at the top, we'll add a new signal, and we'll just call this signal ability acquired, I think that's a good name. Ability underscore ACQUIRED. And this one we're going to give some parentheses because we need to not only emit a signal that the ability was acquired, but we want to include the item data so that our script can handle it. So it's going to contain this argument or this parameter for the ability, which is going to be of type ability item data. Okay, so now we can just go back down here. We've got an error because, why do we have an error? Oh, well, we shouldn't have an error for return normally, but this function is expecting us to return a true or false. So we can return true, means we picked up the item. We only use false if these conditions fail and the inventory was full. Okay, so in here then, now we can just take that signal, and it was ability acquired dot emit, and then in our emit parentheses, we just pass in the item. There we go. Okay, that's all we need to do to our inventory data script, and now it's ready for us to hook up to in our ability script. Let's hop over to that ability script then. We should have that open if you've been following along, but if not, just find it, open up the abilities.gd script. Okay, player abilities is what we've called this class, right? So we're going to come in here and we're going to connect to that signal, and we're going to handle the new ability when it gets added. And so our first step will be to go to our ready function and connect to that signal. So right down here, I guess we can just do it at the end of the script. We've got player manager dot, and then it's we've got an access to our inventory data, and I named it with all caps. I don't know why. It's like the only time I did that. Now we can hit dot, and it's already selected the ability acquired signal, and then dot connect. And we just need to connect it to a function on ability acquired is what we'll call it. And now we're ready to create that function. So we'll just go down to the bottom of our script and make this new function here. Now this function, as you recall, the ability acquired signal is emitting the ability itself. And so that's going to become an argument on this. So it'll be ability, I'm going to give it an underscore, which is our ability item data. And then we can just return void because we don't need to return anything. Okay, so in here is where we're going to handle that. Let's start by just printing a little statement. So we'll say print, and then give ability, I don't care if it's spelled wrong, this is going to be deleted, comma, and then I'm just going to type in the ability type, underscore ability dot type. So if this is all working, we should see this message printed out in the output once we've picked up an item. So let's go ahead and I'm going to run my scene here. Man, this scene 2 is like the most important scene in my game. Bloop. Okay, give ability 1. Bloop. Give ability 2. Seems to be working so far, but obviously we're not yet rewarding the ability to the player, but we've managed to be able to tie that into this and detect, you know, a value 1, 2, 3, and 0. And if we look at our inventory, it's not adding inventory items anymore. So that's a good improvement as well. Now we just need it to, you know, add the ability icons here and to our HUD and enable them for the player. Okay, so now that that works, we just need to do the right thing with the right value, right? And for those of you who are less familiar with enums, this value may be confusing, 1, 2, 3, 0. Maybe you're expecting to see one of these strings appear, boomerang, grapple. Man, I can't get grapple out of my head, even though it clearly says grapple. Arrow and bomb, but really how this works is 0 corresponds with this first item here. 1 is for the grapple. 2 is for arrow and 3 for bomb. Okay, so that's what these numbers correspond to. So, you know, don't let the numbers scare you too much about the fact that the data is changing. So let's go back to our ability script. Sorry, I clicked on a couple things there. So what we're going to do is we're going to use a match statement so that we can take the value that we're getting in our ability, the ability item data that we pass in, and match it with the correct one and update our abilities array here appropriately. Okay, so obviously we've got an example, or I'm going to go ahead and copy these. A little comment that helps us remember which of these strings corresponds to which ability. Okay, so I'm just going to paste that little comment here. Okay, so here's what we'll do. We'll just say match, and then we're going to just take our ability dot type. So we want to match the ability type. So if the ability type is, and what we can do is we can reference the enum within that file. So we can say ability dot t type with a capital T. So ability dot type dot boomerang. Then we know it was a boomerang, right? And so then right here, what we could do is we can just update our abilities array, and boomerang is the first one. So that's at index 0. And then we can set the string to anything we want, because remember, an empty string means we don't have it, and then any other string means we do. But for fun, let's just go ahead and give it actual text. Then it'll be a little bit nicer to use. And of course, I've got an error here because this should be underscore ability, like that. Okay, so I'm going to copy this line, and I'm just going to paste it 3 more times. So we've got, let's see, boomerang, grapple, which if it's a grappling hook, then we're updating the string at index 1, and we'll call it grapple. Okay, what's next? Arrows. So arrow, whoop, that'll be slot 2. And lastly, it's bomb. Boom. That'll be slot 3. And voila, there we have it. So we now have it so that it's going to update those. Before the player is actually rewarded these abilities, we're going to have to just call our setup abilities function. Okay. And there's actually a bug that we'll see with this setup abilities function that I didn't notice when we implemented it in our last video. So we'll clean it up a little bit. But at this point, we should be able to run and actually acquire the abilities. So when we start out, we don't have any of them. They're not in our inventory. So I'm going to pick a random chest. Arrows, and you can see now I've got the arrows in the top left corner of my HUD, and I can fire it. And we've also got the arrow ability here. And so if I go through and I just pick up these other chests, you can see that it's working. Notice what happened there with that last one. Suddenly my grapple hook became selected. That's the bug. Okay, but we've collected them all, and they work. And if we save our game right here, and then let's go ahead and just run anew, and we will load, then we should have all those abilities back. Boom. And because we've tied them to our treasure chests and they have persistence with our save game, that's all working as well. Okay, so pretty cool. Let's go ahead now and look at that little bug that we have with the setup abilities. And what's happening is when we do our setup abilities, we're always setting the selected ability to 0, and then the toggle ability is going to kind of iterate through the abilities and select one, right? This doesn't really work well with what we're doing here. And so we're going to introduce one little wrinkle into this. And by default, we do want it to just select 0. But what we're going to do is we're going to have an optional parameter. I'm going to call this the select index. So this will be an integer. And if we set this equal to 0, that means existing calls to this function don't have to provide this argument, and they'll still function. It'll just default it to 0. So then what we can do is just take this select index and put it here in place of the 0 where we set our selected ability. Okay, just like that. But now the issue arises is that we have this weird thing where it's going to select the next ability. And so what we really should be doing is setting our index to whatever we selected -1, because this toggle ability instantly is going to add 1 to the selected ability. Okay. So if we want it to stay the same or whatever, we have to add 1. And obviously this select index value that we're adding here means that we can also kind of control where it should jump. So then we can come down here, and what I'm going to pass in for the setup abilities is I'm just going to pass in the selected ability index. You could swap this, and so maybe you want to set this based off of, you know, which type of ability was granted, because maybe you want it to select that ability by default. But by passing in the selected ability with those little changes here, we should stay on the one ability that we had selected previously to picking up an item. So I'm going to go ahead and run, and let's demonstrate this by picking up something. Yeah, now no matter what we pick up, my grapple hook will stay selected. Okay, so there we have it. We've built our ability system. It's pretty much fully functional. There's always room for cleanup and improvement, but now you've got the base systems that you need to kind of manipulate this and work it to your heart's content, build the kind of abilities and functionality that you want for your game. And so I hope this has been an awesome little addition to the Action RPG tutorial series. Thank you for tuning in. Go ahead and drop a comment below if you have questions about this or any ideas about how it could be improved. And of course, subscribe to the channel if you're new. I've got more content coming out all the time, and I'm going to be broadening what I release in terms of topics and game types that we cover. And so look forward to that. And a huge shout out to my Patreon supporters. And as always, we'll see you next time.